My name is Daniel Saki. I'm going to be talking about why deforestation negatively affects Earth's environment, specifically that it outweighs the benefits that it gives. The 3 points are that deforestation endangers and injures wildlife. It also damages the atmosphere, and it permanently damages biomes. Before I go into each of these, I'm going to define deforestation. I looked up 2 definitions. The first is the state of being clear of trees or of vegetation, and the second is the actual removal of the trees, the action of it. So my first point is that deforestation endangers and injures wildlife with 2 things. First, that it causes animals to lose their home and also the genetic variation within them, as well as it cuts down natural resources. So the first, animals losing their homes. When natural habitats are cut down, specifically forests, rainforests, things like that, a lot of animals lose their home and many are forced to live in different areas. Along the way though, to their new homes, many of them end up perishing. For the lack of variation, according to a study, it was called Human Impacts Flattening Rainforest Savanna Gradient and Reduce Adaptive Diversity in a Rainforest Bird, the average wingspan of a bird was 75 to 74 centimeters in a deforested area, whereas in a forested area, it was 79 to 71. So they lost a lot of diversity. Rather than evolving as a species, they were coming back together and losing that variation. Next, with cutting down the natural resources, according to Yvonne R. Scales from St. Catherine's College of the University of Cambridge, he was quoted in the Geographical Journal, volume 178. He said that deforestation is seen as the result of management practices and poverty of the rural communities which favor the degradation of natural resources. So in a lot of places, they actually cut down these trees, and that's how they make some of their salary. That's where a lot of the resources come from, but it comes at a large price to the wildlife that's around them. Another fact that came from the Center of International Forestry Research was that one of the main contributing factors to famine in the Horn of Africa was actually deforestation. My second point, so that wraps up why it endangers and injures wildlife and the natural habitats. Next is how it damages the atmosphere. So deforestation causes a buildup of CO2. I'm sure as many of you have learned in your science classes that plants convert CO2 into oxygen, and when we lose a lot of these plants, there's a large buildup of CO2. According to a sensitivity analysis of surface biophysical carbon and climate impacts of tropical deforestation rates, the CO2 amount doubled in African regions where deforestation occurred. David Scully of the University of New Hampshire, as well as Compton Tucker of the National Aeronautical and Space Administration of Goddard Space Flight Center, Maryland, both agreed that there's almost a straight line relationship between deforestation and carbon dioxide. If deforestation declines, that much less carbon dioxide is released. According to Skeptical Science, from 1990 to 2008, there was a 41% increase in the amount of CO2 that was in the air. Thirdly, for deforestation damaging biomes, deforestation, when you cut down the trees in the rainforest actually cannot be replanted. The reason for that is many of the places, when they lose their sunlight and their covering, a lot of these plants and animals cannot live there as it is too hot. In addition to that, many of the seeds are no longer there, and it's hard to repopulate the area. And also, deforestation also causes natural disasters. And Ghulam Akbar, director of the Pakistan Wetlands Program, said that deforestation played a tremendous role in aggravating the floods. Had there been good forests, as we used to have 25 years back, the impact of flooding would have been much less. What happened is they had done a lot of deforestation around the area, leaving many hills just covered in dirt, and what happened is when it rained, plenty of mudslides ended up just wiping away and just destroying a lot because there's nothing to hold in all the dirt. And lastly, deforestation drastically changes the rainfall in the surrounding areas. The University of Waikato in New Zealand did a study, and they found that when these trees are cut down, besides just losing all this carbon dioxide being transformed into oxygen, what also happened is that a lot of this water wasn't able to be evaporated, and that caused less rainfall, which just destroyed a lot of areas and changed the climate in a lot of areas due to the rainfall. So one thing I kind of pointed out was that a lot of my sources and research didn't come just from in the US. The reason for that is I wanted to just show that deforestation isn't just affecting places in America, that it's globally a challenge and a crisis that's going on. So I hope with all this that you can conclude that deforestation causes harm to wildlife, increases the buildup of CO2 and causes global warming, and it permanently damages part of the earth. And that when this all happens, that this negative outcome from deforestation outweighs the positive.
All right, Daniel, the propositions clearly identified. The controversy, as we talked about just a little while ago, there's a little bit of question about whether or not there is a dispute on whether or not these effects take place or are significant. I think you needed to develop that a little bit more, but given the limited amount of time since you got your outline, that makes it kind of difficult to add anything to it. The signposts were pretty clear in the body of the speech. I thought you explained each of the points as you were talking about it very clearly. Although I think especially on the first and the third point, there's a lot more explanation than there is proof on these particular points. There's an explanation about why this might be true or how it's going to have this impact without the same kind of data showing that it in fact is occurring. And I think that you needed some stronger evidence on those particular points. For example, the rainfall quote that you have right at the end gives a conclusion that says this, and I don't doubt that these authorities probably understand the premise and have good reason for believing it's true, but this would be a good place to see where there's some follow-up. You mentioned other places in the world where there were problems because of deforestation. Well, did they have a decline in the rainfall that you were talking about? We ought to be able to see some evidence of that. The one example that you had was the flooding issue when they had deforested in the area, and we subsequently had floods, although apparently we don't need to worry about that because we're going to have less rain as a result of deforesting. That seems like a strange contradiction. I thought you did a good job citing the testimony and giving us the qualifications of those people for the most part. Like I said, it seemed sometimes like the evidence was a little bit conclusionary. All right, thank you.